Hi folks, today's Thursday, something or other, again near the end of the month, February 2025. Honestly, I haven't a clue what today's date is. Not that it's relevant, I just thought I'd chat today. I'd expand what I was chatting about the other day when I was talking about the left versus right at the protest, the UKIP thing in Manchester. And in my opinion, no one's even left or right wing. They were just people who you meet every day. The difference is one side's younger than the other, a different generation. And my point was, although there was some hoo-ha, I noticed there wasn't that hatred mob that had turned up. The ones that seem to try and control things on the left wing. The ones that act like fascists, telling people to be silent, trying to stop people taking films, harassing anyone. There was a bit, but it wasn't the same. Again, I walked through both sides, didn't feel any harassment. I didn't feel anyone was threatening me. I didn't have anyone question me, why I was filming, who am I, trying to block the camera. It didn't happen. Because if you notice, those types hadn't turned up. So let's talk a bit further. Now, the first thing we have to do is understand the youth of today, or when I say the youth, well, some aren't that young, but the generation that's into this. The one thing you notice is how every few years, generations usually see the parents or the generation before them as being outdated. Maybe they see them as not liberal enough or whatever. It's always happened. You saw it. You can go back years and years, but you can even just see it in the media with such as the Second World War, where in reality you had the early form of pop music, where they sang We'll Meet Again, but most of all that was a depressing song, but the rest of them were quite catchy, a bit Madonna style, and you had, people dance together. Hasn't happened since. It was the sort of generations where people literally physically, when I say dance together, I mean they physically dance together. That sort of over the years has come less and less. So in essence, they were the more sexual, you could argue. Then you had the 50s, which was connected to the Second World War, where I'd argue women had gone to work in factories and stuff, and they viewed it as a depressing thing, not because they were working in factories, but it just reminded them being in the war and, losing family members, friends, etc., and the horrors and things. And so there was a sort of rebellion, I'd argue. People see it now as sexist and stuff, but I think for a lot of women, working in the home was a way of rebelling. Everything, if you notice, the furniture was all this sort of, it wasn't plastic, but it was this sort of weird thing. Everything was clean, hair was often bleached, everything was superb clean. And I'd argue it was just simply because of the horrors. It was just to get away from the horrors of the Second World War, which I think was seen as dark and depressing and whatnot. And then obviously you've got the 60s. They rebelled against their parents, so they're probably seen as, really old-fashioned. And, they created this new sexual revolution, which, again, part of this was apparently with the tablet called the pill, freeing up women and wearing short skirts and all this. Although I suspect a lot of this went on in London rather than outside London. And then the 70s, again, the next generation rebelled against the 60s, and you see it there. People suddenly started going punk and stuff, and another sexual revolution kicks in as everyone's wearing risque clothes again. More risque than you could argue the miniskirt, and then it moves on to the where can't remember what you call it, groups like Wham and stuff, where men then start wearing makeup, and then we have the punks and all this hoo-ha. Generation after generation reject, seeing the parents as outdated and they're the cool ones. But one of the things you see in the 70s, which is or early 80s as well, is the difference between then and now, which is the conservatives used to be the sort of stuffy ones, anti-porn, anti-seeing any sort of sexuality was bad. They're into censorship. Well, you could argue they're into censorship, more so that. It wasn't so liberal. And which is why it's weird that you've now got a generation now who, although they claim to be sort of left-wing and liberal, are actually conservatives. They'll on one hand have this weird thing where they'll claim to be into pride and into gay rights, lesbian rights, blah blah blah. But then on the other hand, they're highly offended by any sort of nudity or anything like this. Really conservative, highly. It's sort of seen as being, they get told it's progressive to see any sort of sexuality as being evil. So if somebody sees, anyone looking at lady parts and they're going, oh, she's got nice boobies, oh, it's bad, oh. It's a real strange conservative ideology that we've got today with the youth. I don't think they realise how conservative they've become. Also, they've got the one aspect that's positive is that, unlike in the early 70s, where I think things changed after that, before the 70s, if you were working class especially, you'd be expected to do certain jobs. You wouldn't, you'd be expected to work in a company for life. If your family were coal miners, there was a chance you'd be a coal miner, etc. Today that's gone. The youth today don't have that outlook. They'll not even, there might be a teacher one day, a train driver tomorrow, maybe a doctor the next day. These things aren't sort of, no one's shocked by people changing careers. Well, that was unusual. Also, the outlooks are much different. Although they claim to be sort of socialists, they're more, you see a lot are more into goods and, I don't think many would think it abnormal to have a brand new car, several TVs or several computers and all sorts. This again was an alien thing to even, you had to be well off a few years ago. The concept of having two TVs was mind-blowing when I was a kid. And so you do have this sort of new wave of conservative youth who see themselves as progressive. Well, as I say, they'll have a heart attack if anyone says, you've got nice boobies. Whoa! Or if somebody, the concept of page 3 or something. Whoa! Oh, there's a lady parts there. Really conservative view. And it's, that's the modern way. I'm going to argue in a few years it'll all reverse. But, in the 70s, there was this sort of openness. There wasn't many shows that didn't even have boobies showing. I remember the holiday shows where the cameraman would be filming on the beach and half the women would be topless and that's all the that's what holiday shows were. If you go back, you'll see that. It used to be basically, I think they put them out about 6:30 or 7 o'clock, a holiday show, and it was basically, we're going to walk around Spain and look at women's boobies and pretend we were talking about the holiday. It was never to do with the holiday in most cases. But even other shows, comedy and stuff, they'd have skimpily clad women and stuff. There was a sort of celebration back then. It was seen as liberal. The left were more pro. If you look at the left, that's what the left were. It's like back then, left-wing comedy was funny. It would push the boundaries. Everything left-wing would push the boundaries. Today, the new version of left-wing is conservatism. can't have any jokes that offend anyone. It's got to be as bland as anything. Everything's got to be bland, uninteresting. You can't have any sort of context of women being attractive. Oh no. The whole sort of sexuality has gone straight out the window. And yet, at the same time, as I say, they've got this weird thing where they'll actually claim to be into pride and stuff. It's like, they will support sexuality, but not the sensuousness. Sensuous is an offence, apparently, these days. Nothing sensuous, even though, we've had sensuous going back to paintings on caveman walls. Romans were into, wrote books, and you'd see naked statues and naked paintings all over. You come forward to, the French Revolution, and what's his name? Oh, hang on, someone's coming. Hang on. Sorry. They're all friendly, don't we? Cheers. It's yours. It's alright, is it? Just a big dog. Millie, let him pass. Let him pass. Sorry, folks. Hang on. It's alright. Oh, don't you bark because you'll scare him. Millie, don't stand in the way. That's it. There we go. No, Millie, because I know what you're trying to do, bully. Come on, you, because he's nervous, or she's nervous. That's it, so. Come on. Oh. It might be we're stopping and starting a lot because it's coming out quite early and it's a nice warm day. I'm walking the dogs, did I mention it? As I say, I'll try and keep it on one recording. But yeah, if you go back to during the French Revolution, the Marquis de Sade, well, he wrote some real filth. Hang on. Right. Hi. Hi. But for some reason, the belief now, even though society's coped for all these thousands of years, now any sort of notion of sexuality or, that sort of thing, oh, it's evil, oh, society will collapse. Weird. But people go along with it because people tell each other it and everyone's too afraid to speak out. In fact, it was, I forget his name, I was watching a YouTube vid of one of that Jewish comedian in America who goes round winding people up. He goes round and says, big booty Latina, and the horror. People can't cope with it. That's how ridiculous society has become. And they just don't know, oh, it's not businesslike. And you hear people, even, hang on, someone there. Oh, hang on. Don't know, can they, oh, is it me? It's my own shadow. Oh no, it's a horse. Thought so. Hello, horse. Oh, it's two horses. That was a bit spooky. The shadows. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, it becomes quite funny, comical when you hear, and I get a lot from the youths who claim to be left-wing and liberal. They'll say, you're not very businesslike, saying rude words like boobies and things like that. Whoa. Although, you might notice how it works one way. If I say, ooh, boobies, shock horror, but women can say things like that all the time. And just like, can you imagine? I mean, I wasn't offended in any way. I thought it was very comical. The lady who came up to me and said, forget what she said, I won't repeat it because I can't remember exactly how she worded it. The one who clearly had the hots from at the protest. But if I'd gone up to, a lady who I didn't know and said that, I think I'd probably be in prison now. But again, I'm not offended. I thought it was quite comical. It cheered me up quite a lot. Made my day, if anything. Was it, made going that day well worth going. But again, we have this weird sort of, that's the sort of situation you've got. A lot of youth now, if you actually look at them, they basically remind you of the youth, a sort of conservative youth from the 80s, very conservative. And in fact, this is what makes me sort of giggle in many ways. When we had that protest, the people that were demonstrating against, calling them right wing off, whatever it was, were probably more liberal than them. That's a funny thing. They're probably less conservative than they were in many ways. It does make me giggle how it's gone backwards and forwards. Again, it was a few years ago, it was the left who were anti the EU, and now that's again, I pointed out it's not really a left or right wing thing, but it does make me giggle a lot when I see people who basically coming out with conservative things and they claim to be left wing. But anyway, I digress. As I say, you see this sort of generation thing bouncing back and forth. You even see it with religious people. I've seen it with Muslims and Sikhs and so on, where you'll see the grandparents might be in the religious outfits. Not religious, I shouldn't say that. They're not religious. It's the more traditional clothing, cultural clothing, should I say. And then you might see the children who might be middle-aged have sort of rejected that and just dressing in jeans and stuff. And then the children, their children, are back in the more traditional cultural clothes. And you even hear that by some. I think there was that Scottish comedian, I can't remember, was it him? The Sikh guy who said he only wears a turban because his parents made him feel good because his parents wore it. It wasn't really particularly for religion. There's all sorts of things like this. You see this a lot. Generation, as I say, generation after generation. Trying not to be the parents, although usually as they get older they turn into the parents. I mean, most of the people there, as I say, the funny thing was, the ones who were anti-UKIP, I suspect when they get to the same age, because again it did seem an age thing, when they get to the same age as the people in the UKIP side, although they're slightly more middle class, I admit, but I don't think they're heavily more middle class, the younger ones. I suspect they'll be sort of turn into them, but But again, I don't think either side was particularly right wing or left wing. I think it was just a generation thing more than anything. But this brings me on to my argument. There wasn't that hate there, and I've seen it on other protests. I've seen this with people who claim to be left wing, who I think are the bad people. Now, when I can always tell if someone's bad, they'll start posting on Twitter who people should hate. I see one guy always going, we should hate the billionaires, and it depends what the fashion is. Not so long ago it was we hate white people. You still see that now, white males. There's always somebody to hate. And these are people, and they claim to be left-wing. And again, the problem I have is other people who pretend to be left-wing won't speak out. Example was when we was on that protest, and those thugs who pretend to be anti-fascist, even though they're trying to block us filming and they're assaulting us. You see one of them rubbing himself and pushing me over, so there's no denial of that. These are people who are vicious. In fact, I noticed even the Bulby head, Michael actually had contact with him even before that day, and he was saying the Bulby head was stood there in this weird, real fascist way, saying you are not welcome here, even though people in the protest had actually asked us to film. But he thought he spoke for everyone because he was white and middle class. He spoke for everyone there because he was a superior race. You see how the mindset instantly works. Anyway, but my point was, people didn't speak out. They looked the other way. They allowed me to be assaulted because of, terror. They didn't want to. They were more interested in being viewed as good people than actually doing the right thing. and that's the trouble. And this is what's happening now. Now, as I say, the bad people are the ones who claim to be left-wing but are incredibly fascist. The bad people do, I'll tell you examples. They will tell people certain people shouldn't have the right to freedom of speech. They'll do things like try and contact their work to get them sacked, or they'll contact social media and tell them this person shouldn't have an account. That's fascism. These are evil people. And I see it with even some of the Labour MPs. I remember one wearing this shirt saying, I wouldn't kiss a Tory. Now you might think that's comical, but that's actually, if you put that in context, if you change the word Tory to black or Asian or anything, gay, lesbian, whatever, you can see why there's a problem. You can't go, it's acceptable to be prejudiced against politics just because it suits your feelings. Anybody who's left-wing and who's against prejudice has to, state everything is bad. You can't have exceptions. When you start making exceptions, then you're no longer left-wing. And also, as I pointed out before, we've had at least 3 mayors. The Mayor of Manchester, the Mayor of London, and the West Yorkshire Mayor. These things you can check out, so it's not slander. What they did was, in all 3 cases, they seemed to put out different videos. I don't think they're identical, where it informed people to hate the white working male by putting out videos saying they had, in the cases, they showed a video where a white working class male was going around and we had to fear him, and the victim was, I think in every single case, was female and middle class. And so that was teaching us to hate the working class fully. Even though, there's obviously the danger there is people who have abusive relationships can also be middle class, they can be upper class, they can be, different skin colour, they can even be left wing, they can come across as the nicest person. Having somebody like that was clearly a method by these MPs to tell us to hate the white work. Oh, someone's coming. Sorry. Hi, sir. I'd say just walking past there. Everyone's got headphones on, which is handy. They don't think you're nuts talking to yourself. But we can see how this is progressing, how the bad people are indoctrinating decent people. It's like, I'd say it, the majority of people at that protest who were anti-UKIP weren't bad people. They were just general, frustrated with life. No one speaks out for them, but they've been informed to hate, and that's a dangerous thing. And they've been informed, and in fact we get it all the time, so common you can see it. These middle class people automatically see me and others who are working class and say, and come up to us, and it happens almost all the time, who are you? You're right wing, you have no right to film, how dare you, scum, blah blah blah. And it's automatic. Well, they never do it with anyone middle class. I see middle class filmmakers and photographers always left alone. So you can see they've automatically bigoted, and they're being programmed to hate people. And I see that with this UKIP thing. They've been programmed to hate the UKIP people because to see them automatically as bad. Why? Because they're working class in most cases. There's no other, they haven't actually chatted to them. But this is where we move further. Now, it didn't happen at this protest, which is interesting. But normally what happens is, and I saw it even just earlier, as I pointed out, at the pro-Palestinian protest, and you see it at others, what you have is middle-class people who are fairly, usually in their 40s and 50s, maybe a lot older, who act like the Gestapo, and they're there to silence everyone's thoughts and everything, and they'll walk around, and the moment they see one of their protesters talking to a member of the public, they automatically, because they're pure fascists, go straight up and pull them back and say, do not speak to this person. They don't even think about it. I mean, that is as fascist as you can get. This is unbelievable actions. You'd be embarrassed. In fact, you might have seen in one of my videos, a woman comes up to me, does that usual thing of trying to intimidate me by taking a picture or video. And I says, I'm fine with that. Because, as I say, I'm filming them, they're filming me. I mean, admittedly, she's coming close to me, almost pushing it in my face, but, that's fine. I never do that. I've never done that in my life. But a lot of these people trying to intimidate you will go as close to you as possible, pushing the camera in, which is as ridiculous as anything, because there's plenty of pictures and videos of me online. A lot. Goes back years. You can see videos of me going back years and years. So the notion that intimidates me, it's ridiculous if they're thinking, oh, we're going to share your image online. Don't bother me. But then she started chatting to me, and we had a good chat. But because she was chatting to me and was getting on, oh, someone's coming now. Hang on. Let's just see. Okay, I'll try and stop it. Well, stop if I can. Hang on. Dun, 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 dun. Let's see. Hang on. Oops. Just wait here a second. Yeah, so as soon as she starts chatting to me, this woman, this is, the fascist, comes up, this big fat woman, who I think she was on the side of these other fascists who were there, who claim to be anti-fascists or thugs, and she literally just grabs her and says, don't speak to him, which is the most humiliating thing going. I mean, can you imagine you're an adult having some fat silly mook grab you and pull you back like that? And by the way, at this point people go, oh, you're calling people names, you're not. Well, when people are vile to me, that's when I can call people names. And I'm not into this sort of, I can't call people names. When I feel like it, I will. I don't usually do it often, but when people are nasty, that gives me the full right to blow, my views. No holding back on that. So, Fatty there, big fatty horrible woman, ugly as sin, grabs and pulls her back, folks. How degrading. But you see this all the time. And this is what's interesting. When they're not there, this Gestapo, these, as I say, there's usually some maybe a turn up who try and block the camera, who's gone there to cause havoc. And there's some who go there as this sort of, they pretend to be socialists or left-wing or something. It's not. They're not left-wing or socialists. They're just fascists, folks. And when and if you want to know my definition, I'm using a definition. If you start taking somebody's rights for them by trying to block them filming, or you believe that you have more rights than others to be in an area, if you believe that you can tell people what to do, all these things, that's fascism to me. I don't believe in any of that. I believe everyone, I support everyone's their right to freedom of speech and all that. Where I object is when poor behaviour. I mean, obviously, if you start harassing people, that's not, in my opinion, a freedom I think I will support. In fact, I won't. I don't think that is a freedom when you're trying to take someone else's rights away from them. And I'll keep calling it out. And I know one of the, Bulby Head, the freak, who wears weird trousers. I mean, he's ridiculously looking. I mean, they're all weird looking. I mean, I don't know if that sort of thing, because they are so ugly, that's why they've done this. They've probably got bullied at school. I mean, you've got Fatty there, who smokes like crazy when we was there. And he wasn't always so fat. I don't know why, just shows, as I keep saying, he ain't got really good friends, because they don't look after him. If he had friends, they'd say, look, lose weight and don't smoke. But they don't care about him. So, these people pretend to be kind. They're evil. Then you've got Bulby Head, who looks like something out of a horror film. A weird, deformed guy who wears these weird trousers. They're bizarre. If you look at the videos, they're weird trousers. I don't know where he gets them from. Weirdtrousers.com, I presume. Weirdest looking trousers. I mean, he likes to look like a freak. He dresses up on purpose to look as freakish and ugly as possible. He's very proud of it. Then one of them has weird ears. He sticks his ears in his hat in this weird way. Very strange people. Odd people. People you don't really want to associate yourself with. And then they've got this new one we met in Nottingham who were wearing his 1980s leather jacket in front of what I suspect were vegans. I mean, I wouldn't be that insensitive. I mean, I'm vegetarian, so, that's the only thing that offended me. Seeing him with this sort of knackered, weird thing that said, I'm evil or something on the back of his jacket, as if he's some sort of biker. I was very odd. I mean, no one even understands that phrase. It was very weird. Where he thought he was a gangster coming up to me saying, my friends are coming down. Oh, they're coming down to see you. Oh, and I said, is that a thing? Oh, you can take it while you want. Oh, you sad little man. He's just another sad, ugly man. They're all very ugly, aren't they? It's why there's a belief in America that people are abandoning this ideology because they associate themselves with ugly people. And you can suspect that all these people are getting bullied at school. I mean, Bulbyhead definitely was. I mean, he had no friends, I bet, at school. I bet he was the most unpopular weirdo freak going. I bet it was really unpopular. That's why I think he took up boxing, because in some pictures he appears to be into boxing. So he probably got bullied and thought that's the only way he can defend himself, because he'll have been laughed at. I mean, you can see now he's been laughed at. Everyone laughs at him on the videos. Even people have come up to me on the pro-Palestinian protest, and they've said, well, we don't turn up anymore because of him, but isn't he a ridiculous-looking man? My goodness. I can't believe. Is he in makeup, they said? Is he in some sort of weird, one of these American-type films where you go in the woods and, they're all sort of, weird, horrible. Anyway. But yeah, one of the thing about this is you realise very quickly there are people out there trying to divide everyone. And that's what we've got, this weird division. People shouldn't be hating each other. If you're left wing, you should be trying to bring people together. Everyone should be bringing together and chatting. But no, these people are that evil. They're making sure people are separate. It's very telling why people turn up like them weirdos who follow us around, making sure division exists. That's badness. Good people wouldn't do that. That's why I'm left wing and they're not. They're just fake. They just tell people they are to get away with their, vile behaviour, appalling behaviour. I mean, it's disgusting. And in fact, I noticed in another video, somebody was filming a protest and it went up and says that you shouldn't be. In fact, I've seen it several times. People are speaking out now. They're saying, you shouldn't be treating us like this. And I've seen 2 or 3 people do it. I think even Billy Moore did it. I think it looks like we'd gone because we thought it was over. I didn't, but anyway, they did. And it looks like because I thought it might have been before the protest, but it was getting dark, so I presume he was filming this maybe 10 minutes, maybe even longer after the protest and everyone had gone. There must have been a few hung about, and you see somebody again with a bit tipsy. I mean, I think one of the problems is some of them had a drinky poos and they got stupid and they grabbed the camera and all sorts, but I think he says to them, I've got the right to film, you shouldn't be giving me grief, I'm neutral. And a lot of the people who are filming are neutral, and so what if they aren't? Does it matter if they're full-on socialist left-wing types and all this, or full-on right-wing types as I see them? Doesn't matter. You should welcome everyone. I do. I see no reason. I mean, one of the weird things is this sort of thing from the so-called left, where they see themselves saying, I mean, by the way, I see no point in these protests. I certainly don't see the point of a counter-protest, because what does that do? Do you think they turn? You know, what was the aim? To change people's minds on that UKIP side? Well, you know, the way to change people's minds, if you want to, is communicate, chat to people. So what was the point? Just to shout and wind each other up. Didn't achieve anything. Literally nothing. You just entertain people. People went just to watch, and you know, as I pointed out, to me, in my mind, it was no more than what do you call it? A pantomime. That was all it was. And a lot of these protests are just pantomimes with a lot of people. I mean, it was just a waste of time, but I don't know. But people need to start speaking. This sort of anger to each other ain't going to get anywhere. I mean, it's going to just... I mean, it's cool now. What's it going to get like when it gets hot and people start doing these protests and they get out of hand? Things will just escalate. But I think they'll escalate more with the bad people who turn up. And there are bad people who go they're not there to protest, they're there to create problems, and they're on both sides. But I think tend to be more on the left, to be honest. But again, the question I have is why the Just Stop Hate people and organise the banners. And I think they're bad people, by the way. I think they're there just to create problems. Oh, and someone's coming. Hang on. Let's see. Hey. Yeah. Hey, I've got another one on the way. Come on, you! Oh, where's she come? Oh, wait for her to... She's probably got stuck on the other side. Where's she gone to? Oh, she's there. Millie, I'm here. Come round. Oh, here we go. Oh, there, she's worked it out. Clever girl. Come on, clever clogs. Who did that the other day? Was it Dottie or Ember got stuck? Oh, it's Ember. She's always doing that, isn't she? She crosses over and forgets. Anyway, she's done that loads of times, Ember, hasn't she? She is daft. Gets too giddy. But yeah. To me, and by the way, to me, in my opinion, a lot of these groups, do you know why they exist? I don't think they're even that left wing. I think it's all to do with the fact that they make a lot of money from it. I mean, be suspicious. They sit there smiling and grinning with this sort of false, you know, crocodile smile, telling you they're the good guys and they're left wing and stuff. What you got to remember is, ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. They make a lot of money, these groups. There's a lot of people out there who claim to be left wing or even socialists who are doing it because they know they're making money. It's a good money spin. I mean, I sit there laughing how many of these people grift, and I do think it is a grift, and they'll claim to be very left-wing, more left-wing than anyone, and they'll tell you they're left-wing and they're fighting for the person, I don't know who they're fighting for, and then they'll say, money, 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 can you donate? They're so fake. I mean, it's like when I was in London and I was laughing when one of the so-called socialists had a book that he just printed out off, looked like it was just cheap fax paper. There weren't many pages and he wanted a tenner, and they were going, all right. Oh, my favourite one is the socialist workers. They've got this trick. They go up to you and say, do you want a paper? And you say, yes, thinking it's free. And they go, that'll be £1. I'm thinking, oh, you so-and-sos. Call yourself socialist. You think you give it away free, or at least a lot less than £1. But no, money, isn't it, folks? A lot of these modern socialists are money orientated. Oh, that brings me on to another thing. And I've said this, I upset a lot of people. Because no one else has... They don't sound wrong. They just come out with some cobblers. To me, if... who's the guy who wrote the communist thing? I've forgotten his name now. If you was to do socialism today, I think a lot would adopt Mrs. Thatcher, stroke, Ronald Reagan's ideology, because socialism has always failed. Over and over, every aspect of it has failed and failed and failed. And yet the only time people's lives improved was under Mrs. Thatcher and Ronald Reagan. Now, the socialists who go, "Oh, that's wrong, I don't like that thought," will say, "But she did this, that and the other." And I go, yeah, I'm not saying everything you have to agree with, but principally you take the notion of low tax and to encourage people to do well, rather than to actually see yourself as helping, doing everything to help others. You see, the problem with socialism, the modern version, is it's like a religion. It's about yourself. People who are socialists aren't really interested in actually the other person life improving. It's about making themselves feel good. So they're not bothered if the person getting benefits is on them for life. It's just it makes them feel good. I feel better. I'm helping others. It's a very selfish attitude. And I see it over and over. And a lot will even admit to it. I remember a few years ago when they were doing the cutbacks, and a Labour woman, she was, her very words were, she was upset because this little department that helped, or supposed to have helped, young girls who were, young mothers should I say, they were young mothers. Her very words were, and I don't think she realised what she said, "But they depend on me." Boom. Now she sort of answered her own problem. She answered my, how would I say it? She proved my point, should I say, that all she's done is make people dependent on her. None of them women should have been dependent on her. That isn't helping somebody when you make somebody dependent on them. But that's how a lot of these left-wing socialists act. They like the feeling of control. They like to feel they're helping others. So it's about themselves. They'll set up food banks and boast, "Look at me, aren't I marvellous setting up this food bank?" And, a lot of times people don't even need them. I mean, I keep saying, well, how come people from council estates don't go? I mean, my mate once went because something happened to the benefits. This is a few years ago. And I was sat in the car, and people don't like me to say this, and I've always said, well, I'll take you if you want. In fact, I'll go to any food bank, and we'll just, you tell me a food bank, and I'll film it for an hour, anytime you want, to prove my point. And what happened was people came out and had a cigarette and jumped in often it was a new or fairly new car. And you'd see them with brand new phones. Now what you realise is, it's not that they haven't got money, it's just that they've got into debt, spending. And in fact, I saw one bloke, he were buying the bags off people to resell. He was giving everyone a couple of quid for these bags of food, and some people sold it to him. So you know what I mean? It's but when I say this, it's, "Oh, you believe this propaganda, oh, you believe Daily Mail, blah, 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 blah." And I says, no, I was actually there. And I've always said to them, look, I'll even make it easier. Name any food bank, any time you want me to go, and I'll just sit and film for a couple of hours, and we'll see what happens. They never take me up on the offer, in case I'm correct, which I am. But a lot of these people never actually know anyone working class or poor. They just tell each other, it's just a fantasy. They tell each other, go, "Gosh, you know what working class people are like?" And they say, "Oh gosh, they need the benefits. Oh gosh, they do. Aren't we marvellous handing benefits out to them? Gosh, 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 gosh. Have you ever met anyone working class?" Of course not. It's like, of course we wouldn't want to see anyone working class. We just like to talk about them. We're the experts, we say. And that's what you see a lot. Apparently, I know nothing, even though this is what goes on. Someone coming now. But a lot of the problem with socialism, as I say, it's failed. It's never helped people. And you'll notice only people who want socialism are left-wing middle-class people. I mean, I know some will come and say, I'm working class. A woman did that to me the other day, and then she admitted she was... I looked at her tweets, and she actually said, I'm middle class. I went to grammar school. I mean, she even admitted she was middle class. But you see, the fantasies, they like to cosplay at being working class. I mean, the best ones are the ones who wear the flat caps and tell everyone they're working class. You know, you see them on protests, all these middle class people with flat caps on, and you're going, you're not working. That's what their view, that's how distant they are. They've never actually talked to anyone working class, but because in their head they think all working class people walk around with flat caps on. Handicappers, I think that's their visual. They think handicaps were how everyone dresses and acts. But, I mean, to put it bluntly, benefits hold people back. For instance, paying girls to get pregnant holds them back from actually wanting to get an education. The trouble is, then they're in the benefit system, and then the kids end up seeing it as the better way, and it just carries on generation after generation. It doesn't encourage girls to go out to progress. Anyway. But yeah, the socialism was complete. It had its place maybe a few hundred years ago, such as, you know, Soviet Russia, where people were starving and stuff. In fact, even then, I think Karl Marx, that's who I'm on about, Karl Marx. As I say, I think Karl Marx would not go down to... I think he would actually be more Thatcher beliefs and Ronald Reagan, as in low tax. And again, I'm not saying everything they did was correct, because that's what people do. They go, but she did this and he did that, blah, 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 blah. It's as if it's like I'm saying to them, you've got to do exactly what Mrs. Thatcher did or Ronald Reagan. Never say that. I've never said that. You just take it on as a principle of modern, what I'd argue is would be modern socialism. That doesn't matter if you're Labour, Conservative, Lib Dems. Trying to, you know, and we've seen it in action, the failure, and they still won't accept it. What happens is when you increase taxes like we're doing, people just leave the country. People have no incentive to set up businesses. Businesses fail. People spend less. People then become unemployed, and it just crashes the economy. It happened in the 70s. You know, I mean, there's this tale, and I don't know if I said it before. Now, I was dragged to church when my dad got remarried. Again, I think my stepmom was a lesbian. Nice enough. She was a very socialist woman, very socialist. By the way, the joke I always had with her was because she was a feminist and stuff and a socialist, but she worked in a place that even today her buses couldn't get to. So she had no option to drive. Now, being a socialist, she objected to private ownership of a car. And she hated the idea of driving cars. She always believed in public transport. But then on the flip side, because she was a feminist, she believed that women should prove that they could drive. So I used to sit in the back of the car listening to her complain to herself. It was hysterical because she was in this sort of flip-flop anger with herself because she couldn't win. It was brilliant. Anyway, but there was a tale again. She was. We went to this Baptist church. I presume it's still going. I think it was in Hare Hills. God, I hated religion. Didn't hate religion, but I've never been religious. And it bored me. I hated going on a Sunday. God, it was awful. And again, full of people who were just, I think, half-time fake. And I used to say, anyway, I won't go into it. But as I say, it was this Baptist church. Again, I don't know if it's still going. But halfway through, I think it was halfway through. I mean, this is years ago, so I've got a bad memory of it. We used to have this Sunday thing for kids. And you go downstairs. I don't know how well the building was. Someone coming? Oh, great, we'll have to walk because someone's coming. So I'll finish with this story. But the only thing that ever interested me was this story one of the women told us, one of the teachers, and it was about a butterfly and a little girl. I think it was a little girl, might have been a little boy. But we'll say it's a little girl. Not that it matters. comes across a butterfly, and is it a catalyst or whatever you call, that's not the word, is it? You know, when they make that little home for themselves, cocoon thing or whatever they call them, you know, from being, you know, they start off being like a wormy thing. What do you call them? God, my memory's bad, but this is the trouble with being dyslexic. Them think caterpillar, that's it. So they start off as a caterpillar, and then they cover themselves as that goo stuff, and it hardens, and then you know, it turns into a butterfly. Well, she comes across it. We'll say it's a she, and thinks, "Oh, I'll help it." And then she opens this cocoon thing or whatever you call them, and the butterfly dies because apparently, and I don't know if it's true, if it would actually be in reality, but the story is that the butterfly dies because it needs to break itself out and dry itself out and all this. And even though she was trying to help it, it dies. And that to me is what socialism is. I think that was the tell, actually. You know, people want to help, but they can harm people by doing it. You know, they go out and it makes them feel good, but the reality is they do more harm than good, and I think that's the trouble. That's my, you know, it's always been, that's my debate about socialism. But it never has worked. People don't want it. I never understand people, left-wing middle-class people, who go around thinking other people want this. And that's why it turns into killing people, because you've got to force people to comply. You have to kill people, put them in prison to comply with it. Even now, I mean, you could argue that's what's happening with Labour. You have to scare people into staying silent by having them arrested over any opinions. Just like there was a complaint, I think, wasn't there, that police who went round, who because somebody wrote about, I don't know what it was, about a Labour MP writing, no, was it a councillor, writing that thing about wanting pensioners to die or something. I can't remember exactly, because they didn't vote his way. And the police were sent. Well, that's what you do. That's, you know, happens all the time. Socialism, you have to force everyone to comply. By fear. Force. Ka-ching. That's why it doesn't work. And every single time, everything that's introduced on this left-wing socialist thing fails. Always does. Hasn't helped people. But anyway, I'll leave it there. I think I've covered most of what I was going to say today. But yeah, we've got to stop attacking each other and realise who the bad people are. It's those who post to tell you to hate. They're not good people. It's the bad people who go and protest and say, you know, try and stop people filming. You know, question you, saying, who are you? You're not allowed to do this. You're the right wing or whatever. They're the bad people. Don't fall for it. Because that's what's happening. All these, and I think most of them, 9% of them I think were decent people. If you watch, they weren't screaming and shouting. They were stood there. Part of the, admittedly, they were part of the play. Oh, not play. What was I calling it? Pantomime, that's it. They were there part of the pantomime. But without them horrible people, they didn't go round attacking. And we've seen that in other places. When them horrible people are there, they're there to attack. They're not left-wing. They're the fascist. They're fighting. They're lying to people, saying this is a right-wing group and they're the bad people. They're lying to you. They're not. They're just people with opinions. You know, there's no right-wing. Whenever you see these left-wing people who are grifters saying there's these right-wings, you understand what they're doing. They're telling you to hate them. They're telling you, I've seen this on YouTube, these left-wing grifters. and they tell you to hate. They say, oh, there's these right-wingers, we're the better people. It's what they're doing is, when you call people right-wing or Nazi or anything, it's a way to dehumanise. That's why it's easier to attack people. That's what they're trying to do. They'll pretend to be nice. They've got a crocodile face on. They might be nice, they might be, oh, that's a nice person because he's a nice young-looking lad, or he's got a nice little beard and he looks like Santa or whatever. Don't fall for it. Don't think just because they look nice, they present themselves nice. They have people going around saying, oh no, he's fought racism all these years and all this. Don't fall for it. The moment they start using language such as the right wing, they're the bad people. They're telling you to see other humans as not human. They're dehumanising people. They don't care then. It's so that people can then attack them because they feel they're being told. If you see these people as wrong, you see them as the enemy, and you see yourself as victorious, I don't know the word. You see yourself as fighting some sort of, you're going to go down in history. Oh, hang on, let's see. They're trying to do that. That's what it's about. These aren't good people, folks. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Bye.